Welcome back to the IBFP. Here's your host, Boxing New.
Men lie, women lie, but the facts don't lie. Welcome into another edition of Mythbusters, the False Prophets edition. And you know what's a false prophet? A false prophet is someone that claims to be more than they actually are. They act as if they want people to follow them because of their inflated self-image and misrepresented self-worth. Let's just break it down. The three myths about Floyd Mayweather is that Floyd Mayweather never lost the fight, Floyd Mayweather never ducked the fight, and Floyd Mayweather never cherry-picked. And let's just break it down honestly and unbiasedly with the first myth is that Floyd Mayweather never lost the fight. Now his record says one thing, but the truth says another, and he clearly and concisely lost to Luis Castillo in their first fight. Pretty much anyone and everyone who saw this fight had Luis Castillo winning. It was probably one of the worst robberies in boxing history. I mean, you've seen Luis Castillo coming on hot, mid, and late in the fight, and the guy was showing his size and strength, putting on a great body attack on Floyd Mayweather. Even the punch tests were in his favor. I mean, look at it like this. He outlanded Mayweather in total punches as well, 203 to 157. He outlanded him in power punches as well, 173 to 66. Luis Castillo pressured Floyd Mayweather like really no one ever had before. Even Luis Castillo right now still contends the whole world and the fans know that I beat Floyd Mayweather. I mean, let's just be honest. We even saw Floyd's look on his face right before the judge was, the judgment was read. He knew he lost the fight. And at the end of the day, HBO was pouring a lot of money into Floyd Mayweather. Top Rank, he was supposed to be their next big star. There was no way they were going to give this fight to Luis Castillo unless he knocked out Floyd. That's just the truth of it. I mean, you've even seen other close fights that Floyd could have arguably lost. I mean, Maidana won. Even a worn-out Oscar De La Hoya fight with Floyd was controversial, but the only one that the entire world agrees that Floyd truly lost is to Luis Castillo. But let's just keep it going. The next myth about Floyd is that he never ever ducked a fight. And this is the funniest one because Floyd ducked many fights over his career, but here's the one that's most intriguing is the fact that he ducked Winky Wright. And he's the one who called out Winky Wright. In 2005, he called out Winky Wright. This guy was a former undisputed fighter at 154 pounds. He just came off a win of Felix Trinidad at 160 pounds. And and he also had two great wins over Shane Mosley. So, right away, Winky Wright agreed to the call out with Floyd Mayweather. And within a few days, he had his entire team down in the Top Rank office getting the fight done. These guys agreed to all the details. And, the fight would have been at 154 pounds. The weigh-in would be the morning of the fight rather than the day after the fight. And Winky Wright would not be allowed to gain more than 8 pounds between the weigh-in and the start of the fight. So what we would call that now is a rehydration clause. Let's just be honest. But at the end of the day, you see at the last minute, Floyd Mayweather pulled out of the fight demanding changes to the purse split. Why would you call out a guy and then duck it at the last minute? Don't call for smoke you really don't want. Let's just be real. And not only that, he also ducked Miguel Cotto. And I have a lot of people saying, well, didn't he fight Miguel Cotto in 2012? He did, but that ain't the Miguel Cotto that he ducked. The Miguel Cotto that he ducked was the one from 07-08. This was Miguel Cotto. He was the best welterweight in the division aside from Floyd Mayweather, and the fight made perfect sense. I mean, this guy was coming off of great wins against Quintana, Zab Judah, Shane Mosley, and he brought a lot of clout and money to the fight as well. It was a profitable fight. He was a star with the Puerto Rican fans. This fight made all the sense in the world. These would have been the two best fighters in the division, fighting, and they needed to see this. Yet Floyd signed for a pointless rematch with Oscar De La Hoya, and then retired before even giving Oscar the rematch or taking a Miguel Cotto fight. And then when he ended up taking the Miguel Cotto fight, it wasn't in 07-08, it was in 2012, where after, you've seen Miguel Cotto already get 2 stoppage losses to Margarito and to Manny Pacquiao and been in a war with Claudy. He was not the same fighter. See, Floyd caught him at the right time. We got to be honest. He didn't fight Miguel Cotto when he was at his best and when he was at his most dangerous. Didn't mean Cotto was a washed fighter. It simply means that he was not the same. He didn't get the best version of Miguel Cotto. He ducked him for that span of time until he put on all those miles, until he took all those losses, and then he felt like, okay, let's go ahead and go get this guy. In 2012, he even put up a good fight and gave Mayweather problems. But here's the thing, the 07-08 version of Miguel Cotto, the one that had a lot of pressure on his inside game, a killer hook, a snapping jag, that Miguel Cotto would have brought a different dimension to the fight with Floyd Mayweather, and he ducked it. Let's just be honest. And then the last myth that we're going to debunk is that Floyd never ever cherry-picked the fight. And if you know Floyd, if you've been around boxing, you realize that Floyd Mayweather is the TBE of cherry-picking. He's cherry-picked a lot of fights at the right time with guys who either before or after their primes. This is who Floyd Mayweather is. This doesn't mean Floyd's not a great fighter. This doesn't mean he's not a Hall of Fame fighter. He's simply not TBE. He's the TBE of cherry-picking. Let's be honest and unbiased about it. Even his own father stated, why can't Floyd cherry-pick just one? Look, Floyd has cherry-picked quite a bit. I mean, think about it like this. He cherry-picked Andre Berto. And when he cherry-picked Andre Berto, he had a list of fighters that were available to fight that were all top fighters at the time that would have made a great matchup, an intriguing matchup for Floyd. Keith Thurman, Sean Porter, Amir Khan, Kell Brook, Demetrius Andre, Devin Alexander, Lamont Peterson, Danny Garcia, and even Idris Landy Lotta. Idris Landy Lotta had been calling this guy out, and yet Floyd never wanted to smoke with any of these guys. He's the TBE of cherry picking for a reason. And a lot of people will try to wipe this under the rug and say, oh, Floyd was old. Floyd was active, trying to break records in boxing. And here's the interesting thing, not being in your physical prime and still being an elite fighter is two different things. You don't have to be in your physical prime to still be elite. You don't have to be in your prime to be elite. And Floyd Mayweather Jr. was still an elite fighter. He still had shown no signs of slippage. Floyd Mayweather Jr. was at the top of his game still. That's how truly great Floyd is, and you give him the credit for being a great fighter. But at the end of the day, he's the TBE of cherry picking for a reason, because he's not going to take a fight that he doesn't have a decided advantage in. Let's just be honest and unbiased. Floyd Mayweather is the TBE of cherry picking for a reason. But once again, unbiased as always, it's the IBFP.